So an interesting article I was reviewing the other day, and sort of from time to time I watch these article reviews or read through these just to keep a pulse on what we might be finding in terms of eating behaviors, because I think there's something in the how we eat just as much as there's something in the what we eat, and I will talk about that in the future. But for today's video, really what I want to touch on is sort of when we're looking to lose body fat, so for fat loss, sometimes the type of food is important. And this is not to confuse the fact that the number one most important thing to lose body fat is you must be in a calorie deficit. There's absolutely no way around that. So let's assume that's the case. When we're looking to lose body fat, there's types of food that make it a little bit easier, and technically types of food that make it a little bit more challenging. And it might not be this carbs versus fats idea versus protein that you might jump to when I say that, because the research has really been showing that it's really the processed foods versus the whole foods. It's these foods that have been created in a way that should feel rewarding in a sense, right? And sometimes they'll call it obesogenic foods. Sometimes they'll talk about palatable foods, things that are easy to eat. Sometimes they'll talk about dopaminergic, so like things that make you get excited about eating them. And not to get too lost in all the definitions and the words. The purpose of this point, the crux of it, is that processed foods tend to make you overeat, because they short circuit parts of your brains. They move around some of the defenses we might have to make sure that we're eating the amounts that we need to eat. And one of the things about processed foods is we find that there's a reduced thermal effect. And something that's called TEF, it's the thermal effect of food. It's just basically how much energy food would take to digest, right? This is sometimes where you get the argument with celery, why eating celery uses more calories than it has in it, and that's something to be debated. But on whole, there's certain types of macronutrients that tend to be a little bit more increased in thermal effect, which take more energy to digest and technically might boost your metabolism slightly to help you, right? That being said, processed foods on the whole tend to have a lower thermal effect. That means it's easier to digest, and it means that you're more likely to continue eating it and store more of that food because it's so easily digestible, not using enough energy. Now, the type of food is important when we're looking for fat loss, because we're finding that with processed foods, it actually helps you to preserve your energy expenditure. It almost makes you want to exercise less. And some people mention this when they have foods that they don't normally have. They feel lethargic, they feel fatigued, so they don't feel as motivated to go exercise, etc. So there's this preserving of energy expenditure, of energy output when having too much processed food. Now, if you're having more whole foods, let's say, less processed, you're going to find that your satiety signals are higher. You're going to feel fuller sooner. And sometimes that's related to fiber, sometimes it's related to protein, and a number of other things. Sometimes just the way you have to eat it takes a little bit, the mechanical chewing of it, as opposed to being able to inhale it a little bit quicker. It helps to feel satiety, feel satisfied, full sooner. And also there seems to be a better control of your hunger signals when you're having less processed food. So again, you know how I said it short circuits your brain and in your body. Processed foods help you to feel hungry sooner, or you miss the signal altogether in terms of being full, or you misread a hunger signal. So that being said, processed food tends to have a low thermal effect. It takes less energy to digest. It tends to not help you feel full sooner. It tends to make you feel hungry or not feel full fast enough. And it sometimes have an effect of making you feel less likely to want to exercise or be active.